Are you struggling to get engagement from your content? Join me on this episode as we uncover how research and storytelling can multiply your leads. I'm Devin Hers. Welcome to this episode of the DMC Marketing Nugget.
Get ready to hear from industry titans, unveiling their most coveted marketing nuggets. Discover how they nail whales as they generously share confidential insights on their business marketing operations. And now, introducing the host of DMC Marketing Nugget, Devin Hers.
My wonderful guest today has over a decade of experience in helping B2B tech brands create thought-leading content that elevates their marketing presence and brand recognition. She has worked with brands like Adobe, IBM, and Zapier. Her clients have reported achieving 2 to 3 times the amount of leads, also getting extensive media coverage and a significant boost in engagement. Welcome the founder of Redpoint Content, Becky Lawlor. Great to have you here, Becky.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Well, I'd love to get a little bit more familiar with how you got started in this line of work. So if you want to give us a little bit of your background, that would be a great place to start.
Yeah, so I started as a freelance marketing writer, working with B2B tech brands on developing thought leadership content like white papers and ebooks. And over that time, one of the things that I started to work on was a lot of data-driven reports. The client would go out and do the research, and then I'd write those, and those really lit me up just from a terms of, I felt like it was a lot more interesting and engaging for me to write, which translated in my mind, it was probably going to be a lot more interesting and engaging for the readers out there as well, in terms of the type of content. So I then went on to want to be able to offer that full service to all of my clients. So I actually trained with a woman that used to run the Content Marketing Institute's benchmark surveys and how to do this whole process end to end. And so for about the last 5 years, I've added onto just being able to develop thought leadership content overall, adding in this type of survey-based primary research as a way to elevate your content marketing, build greater thought leadership and brand awareness with your content. And I feel like my hunch about it has proved out. I see a really high engagement and ROI for my clients that invest in it.
That's beautiful. And I think as business owners, we think we know who our audience is, but talking with many of our clients and just through the years and even for ourselves, sometimes it's very hard to pinpoint who your audience is. So how do you go about finding an audience to even survey to get this data that you're speaking of?
Yeah, well, the first piece of it is you need to understand what your goal or strategy is while you're conducting this. So from a marketing perspective, like what are those outcomes that you want? If you are looking for, really building your authority and getting brand awareness, then that may be a PR play. If it's really lead generation, then you're looking at targeting like who your ideal customers would be, right? So first you need to identify who this is going to, because if it's press, then maybe the most important thing is figuring out what's going to be interesting to them in terms of a headline. And so who would the audience be to deliver that? But often those audiences are the same. They're still like your target customer audience. But then the question becomes, okay, we've identified that we want to survey, say IT professionals that buy our type of software or marketing professionals that buy our software. But how do we actually reach these people to do this survey is, I think, where a lot of companies struggle. And there's typically two options. One is an email list but you need to have a pretty large and robust email list to get a big enough sample size. The typical response rate is usually between 1% to 5%, depending on how engaged the email list is, how interested folks would be in the survey topic. So that can be a challenge, if you only have a 10, 20,000 email list. It may seem big, but it's not big enough, So the second option is to use a panel. And here you want to be careful that you're using a B2B professional panel, somebody that really does have your target audience. And as part of that, you also want to be able to qualify them and really narrow it down. Like maybe you want IT professionals, though, that are in very specific roles or a specific size of companies, so that you're really getting the right folks to answer your survey, not just generalists that wouldn't really be able to give you quality responses.
Right. It's all about the data. So then that's something that you help your clients with, is to really recognize and determine who that audience is and how to get that best survey back?
Yeah, so I work with them first to understand whether email is feasible in the route we want to go, or if it's going to be a panel vendor. And then I have relationships with about a dozen B2B, professional panels out there that I've worked with. So I know which ones deliver quality. I know who's most cost effective, and I can kind of go out and help find that and come back to them with here's the best option for this survey for this audience.
Okay. And so once you have that data, how do you actually dig deeper into the data to find those hidden stories and the details there that you're trying to get to help the client? How does that work?
Yeah, so you have your, I don't know, like a 30 question survey. So you have your initial kind of questions and that data. But what is often more interesting or equally interesting is taking, for example, you can take your demographic data, like the industries that you surveyed or the size of companies or even the roles, and find different hidden stories or trends. Like, for example, maybe different industries have different challenges, or maybe there's a disconnect, like C-suite responded one way about things, and those that are actually doing the work, the individual contributors, had a whole different perspective. So that can be really interesting, but that's called cross-tabbing, where you kind of go behind the scenes with your data and you're looking at how this question was how people responded to this question, how it may have impacted how they responded to this question, and trying to find those trends and patterns that are in addition to the initial questions you asked.
So yeah, so you really have to be a data expert, or at least know what you're looking for to get that data out, to get the stories out. Do you have any examples of how you've done that for some of your clients with these, the hidden stories?
Yeah, so I mean, when I have a data analyst that I work closely with, I don't do the data part. I do think it is important to have somebody with that real skill set and experience. But I'm kind of the content strategist and storyteller mindset, who's like, hey, this is kind of interesting. Can you dig into this one more? Can you look at these questions? Can you compare this? So that's sort of how I do it to, just get that. But in terms of customers, one could be like, there was one recently this summer where we thought that we had kind of a different story, but what we found did all this cross-tabbing is that there was a really interesting sort of leader laggard story, like that the leaders were really seeing significantly more benefits. Those that were investing in the certain technology were really kind of ahead of those that weren't putting the investment in, and so that actually kind of shifted what we wanted to focus on in the report, because it was such an interesting story once we saw that there was such a big gap between what the leaders were doing and what those that weren't essentially making those investments were doing.
So ultimately, that basically helps. But when you're going through all this process, that's helping your clients tell better stories, use content to then generate leads. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and to build out really, I think, a whole foundation of content, this type of research can be used really for content fuel for an entire year. Not only are you often surveying who your target audience is for the rest of your content, helping you understand better what your content strategy should be, because now you know what they're really struggling with and what their interests are and what would be relevant. But when you kind of do this hidden story digging, you also get all these, like, you may have your main report, but now you have all of these tangential pieces of content you can do, or you can break out, like if you're doing ABM marketing, maybe you can break out the data by industry or by role, however works for the type of ABM marketing you're doing. So now you can create individual reports for just those segments. So there's a lot you can do when you kind of slice and dice the data.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because sometimes it's just so important to be able to talk one-to-one to those people, or hit on those pain points that they're experiencing. I mean, we're hearing that nonstop about storytelling, solving problems. Those are the things that we want to lead with, whether it's even a social media post that has to have a hook, or a blog topic, or an email marketing blast. those things need to resonate immediately when they see a subject line. We have just a split second to grab attention. So by using this data, we're really able to talk to them in a way that they want to be talked to and hitting on the pain points. Now, once you have some of that content created and built out, what are some of those distribution strategies that you're using to maximize the investment in your original research?
Yeah, so there's just so many ways that you can use the research. I think one of the ones is I do really recommend that you create at least one kind of cornerstone report that is where you can drive people kind of for the full data and the full kind of narrative that you want to tell. And then that helps as you go out and do, like I talked about, kind of like side topics or whatever derivatives of it, then you can still drive people back to that report. And that's the report's typically your lead gen tool. So, but in terms of other assets, infographics, blogs, I mean, webinars are great to bring on like either internal thought leaders or some external industry experts to talk about the data and discuss it. You know, like, oh, this finding was surprising. Why do you think that is? Obviously the press piece of it and media mentions, even if that's not your goal, you should absolutely at least create one press release and at least send it out there and see what you get. But even to be more strategic, if you're going to break this down into different industries or different audiences, then I actually recommend that you create separate press releases for each kind of industry that you're targeting, so that you're really being more thoughtful and targeted in who you're approaching. So, and I have there's a whole list of PR strategies, but essentially you want to be focused on the PR as well. Another place that I've actually seen clients get really strong results is using the data in events and trade shows and to get speaking engagement. I have one client I worked with, they'd actually applied for speaking positions at a trade show they really wanted to participate in previously and been declined. But when they submitted it with this research, they submitted again last year. Not only were they accepted to speak at the trade show, they actually got a prime speaking spot. Wow. And since then, they've been using it. I mean, they probably used it 5, 6, 7 events over the year and had really great success there.
That's great, because I think so many people, again, with this wonderful world of social that we live in, it's all the visuals, the eye candy, but something as as a simple application that you're trying to get a speaking engagement by saying the right things, hitting on those right points, it's now getting, and I read some of those testimonials. I mean, you got some people getting some serious hits on speaking, more media engagement too. I think you're talking about the PR side of things. Their normal reach was not working. Once they got through your program, it seemed like you're generating more media opportunities, which then in turn more content out there, which is generating leads for people. So love seeing that. Now, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience as far as how this could help them, or the first steps to really go through to make something like this happen or to work with you?
Yeah, so just before I talk about the steps to do this, I just want to, talking about, again, lead generation. SEO is actually also a great outcome from this because people backlink to data. So those backlinks can actually help improve your SEO standing. So that's just another way that it can be used. And it can also be used sales enablement. It can be a great sales enablement tool to have this data. You're really sort of validating, like, if you're going to say something about your product, now you sort of have this data to back it up, which is helpful. So as far as how to get started with this, I think the first thing is you need to figure out what your research topic is going to be. And to do that, you need to kind of figure out what is not already out there in the market. Just like anything, you want to have a unique angle and a unique topic. So look for where there's a gap in your industry, maybe something that people haven't done research on, haven't talked about, and go down that hole. And if you're in an area where there's already a lot of research happening, like, let's say, everybody, there's, I don't know, a dozen state of marketing reports. So that's going to be harder if you're focusing like you're in MarTech, but you still need to find something that would align with your products and services. Now, we're trying to be thought leadership, so we're not trying to be salesy, but you want to have at least some kind of alignment there. and then figure out a topic, like I said, that isn't out there that would generate new data that folks would be interested in. So that's the first process. And then, this can be done in-house if you have the skills to do it. If you would want somebody that can do the data analysis. The piece that I want to really kind of emphasize that a lot of people overlook and think anybody can do is the actual survey design. That is actually the most critical piece of this whole process. If you don't get your survey right and it's not written well, you will not have good data. Either the quality will be wrong or you just won't have an interesting story to tell. You really need to be thinking about your survey, both from like, how is this generating a narrative that we can then turn into content? How are we asking questions, not in leading or biased ways, but are we using the right type of survey question and the right way to word it, that if I want to translate this into a headline, it's going to do that well. So that's the part where I would say, like, make sure you actually have some expertise around that, or you get help with it.
So just plugging in a MailChimp or Constant Contact survey is not going to get the job done. And we've seen that happen all the time. Oh, we're going to do a survey to get us all this data. And they get, maybe if they're lucky, one response back, right? So doing it the right way, understanding the data, the research, how to go about this is what Becky really helps with. I think we got some great nuggets there. You've also been kind enough to share your ebook with us. So go ahead and tell us about your ebook that you have.
Yeah, so this is really about how to get that quality data. So it kind of goes through the things that you need to do or the mistakes not to make. Everything from, when you're designing your survey to how to look at your data, just to ensure that, so if you are doing this in-house, or even if you're like vetting vendors that you want to work with, I think it's important to have these key things in mind and make sure that these steps in the process are going to happen.
Cool. And that ebook is titled 11 Simple Tips for Making Your Research-Based Content Credible and Compelling. So that is always good. So you can get the nuggets here on our episode, but definitely jump in to that link that we have on the screen here, and you can go ahead and download that ebook. And we're coming up to the new year here. Any big plans, any exciting things that we need to know about from Redpoint and what you got going on in the new year?
This work with a lot of interesting projects lined up. And I'm also going to be launching my own research-based survey. I'm really interested and intrigued around, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, does our research need to be branded with a third party for credibility? I have my own opinion on this. So I want to kind of vet that in the industry and marketplace to see whether or not my opinion is bears out. So I'm going to be doing some of my own research on that. So
I like that. We can debunk or prove the opinions are not right, or if they're correct. So that's another great way to do a survey to find that out, because I think a lot of times too, sometimes our business owners have been in the business for, decades, and they think something that 20 years ago, what they were saying is still resonating today. I think it's so important to upgrade that and make sure you are listening to what your clients are saying, what the media is looking for, in order to, make sure you're putting out the best content possible. So I think very, very good points there. And something that's not necessarily the hottest thing in marketing right now is doing surveys and this and that, but taking the time to do this the right way is going to get you to your end goal a lot quicker. And I think at the beginning of the show, you made a great point of what is that end goal that you're looking for. So making sure that's very clear up front, so all the content really flows into that. How else should our listeners connect with you on LinkedIn or website? Do you want to provide some of that information for us?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn, and I'm frequently posting kind of thoughts around how to do original research and how to thought leadership and how to get that right. So definitely they can connect with me on LinkedIn. And my website is redpointcontent.com.
Excellent. Awesome. Any final thoughts you want to leave our audience with?
I just would actually say that I think that research, using research in your content is actually going to become a important differentiator, especially with the introduction of more AI generated content. You're going to need unique thoughts and research in order to stand out from just kind of your generic SEO content, as that becomes easier and faster to create.
Okay, well, that's why I love doing these nuggets, because I'm always learning. Our team's always learning from them as well. And hopefully everyone out there is taking notes and learning from this. So if you're interested in doing a survey, make sure you reach out to Becky. You now have some amazing nuggets to help you really improve your content, improve your strategies going on. I think now is a great time to visit some of those things in your business to make sure that you're elevating things in 2024. So Becky, thanks again for joining us today on today's Nugget. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. It was really nice to be here.
All right. Well, that's a wrap of another great DMC Marketing Nugget. Go ahead and hit that like and follow button and listen to us on your favorite streaming apps. Visit DMC Marketing Nugget to watch all our past shows. And here's to your success and Happy New Year.